So good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Thursday session, 14th November. And today session will largely cover an overview of the skills you will require for ROE. One of the things I also wanted to mention is uh, ROE will comprise of weeks 1 to 6, which is a change from prior ROEs. Yes, it's Sunday this week, and it'll be, I think it is 1:30, if I'm not mistaken, the time. Can someone confirm that for me? Is it 1:30?
1 o'clock to 1:45 is what I know.
Okay, okay. Let me just check here real quick. Uh,
So in one of your posts, you have put like the time is yet to be decided, and you don't have a
okay,
space.
yeah. So that might still be true actually. Let me see here. Okay, yeah, no. So it is 1 o'clock. Okay, ROE. It's not 1:30. And but the duration has not been fixed yet because that's still being decided. So just make sure you make a note of that. It's at 1 o'clock. Okay. But that doesn't mean turn up at 1, obviously. Just you will be given a link to the ROE site. It's already discussed on when project one results are expected. So, yeah, Raja, the project one results, Anand hasn't yet pushed them to operations. As soon as he pushes them to operations, then they will release the result. Um, we don't um, we don't have the um, uh, ability to, as in the TAs don't have the ability to push the results, although we can look up your results. So we know what it is, what your scores are, but we don't have the ability to push it to operations at the moment. So when Anand certifies that these are the results, then you will get your results. Okay. Um, okay. So you're asking, is it the same as OPP? So no, ROE is not the same as OPP. ROE is completely open book. So there is no recording being done of your session. There is no video setup, camera capture. There's no screen capture, nothing, because it's completely open book. You can have a whole team of people in your room and trying to do ROE, no problems. Okay, you can maybe have a um, in the past they used to call these LAN parties. I don't know if people still do that sort of thing nowadays in this age, but where people would take their computers, go and sit at one person's home, and all four people will be in a LAN party, right? So yeah, you can do whatever, right? Yeah, you can consult during ROE, except you won't be able to consult us as the TAs. Okay, but whoever else you want to consult, you can consult, no problem. Typically, what's happened in past ROEs is there has usually been a G Meet that is available for people that are having any technical difficulties, so they can log in to the G Meet if they are facing some sort of operational issue. So they can, then the operations team, who will also be on the G Meet, will also be able to give you instantaneous support. So that will be usually available. I haven't discussed it with JK this time, but I expect something like that will probably be set up anyway this time as well. Um, the second thing is there might be a discourse post that is open specifically for ROE. So in there, if people have any issues, they could post in that particular thread specifically for ROE. And then once ROE is over, then that thread might be locked. So those are the two avenues you can receive support during ROE, but it won't be like we won't be giving you the answers. Okay, but you can discuss and collaborate with others with no issues. Okay, you can use any kind of help you need for GPT, whatever you want. Okay. Uh, are there any other questions before I continue? Okay. So, right, let me see here. Just give me 1 second here. What I wanted to do. No. Okay, so the before we do that, okay, some essential skills you will require for ROE, right? So we'll just go over. We'll do a quick sort of run through of what some things you might need to be very familiar with ROE. So clearly, you have to be able to use the tools. So in terms of week one, it's there is nothing in here specifically that you will need to know, except for the fact that you should be able to use the tools to do the job. Okay, and that's using any of these things. With regards to SQL, I hope that you have practiced some level of SQL. Okay, um, um, in our discussion with Anand, there will be, we were talking about some of the things that students will be tested on, and there will be some need for you to know at least some level of SQL, and that's why what I would suggest is you use this site called SQL Zoo, and go through some of these constructions that you might be needed to use, that you might need to use. So, for example, summing, counting, selecting. Obviously, every SQL statement all has select usually.
So, are we expected to be ready with an SQLite database DB browser in our system also?
It's not so much the kind of database that will matter as much as you knowing how to construct an SQL and how to debug an SQL statement. Because let's say if the question is, okay, we want you to find all the, let's say, all the airlines that fly out of a particular city grouped by hour or something, right? So then you have several things going on there. You want distinct airlines, so you need to know the word distinct in SQL. You will need to know how to count, so you'll need the count function. You'll need to know aggregation, which is then being able to use something like the having clause, things of that sort. You see, that's what I mean by it's not so much it will be specific to any particular database, but more important that you know how to construct an SQL to get the result that you're looking for. Okay.
So it's just like writing a query, right?
Correct.
They are
Exactly.
not expecting like we should create a table and then extract the
No,
answer.
no,
Not
no.
like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no.
Okay, so just
You'll
like
be, yeah,
week one,
Just write
yeah,
a
week
query.
one
Okay.
graded assignment had that kind of
yeah,
query.
yeah.
There was a question in week 4 where we have to connect to a database and then find out some answers.
Yes,
Is it
yeah,
like that?
yeah. Similar to that. Yeah, you will almost certainly be given something like that. Okay, because it's been in the GAs, so it shouldn't be unexpected that you will be required to connect to a database, right? Sometimes the database is given to you as a file, but sometimes you might have to connect it via the web itself. So if you were to have to connect it via the web, then you should know how to create connection strings. And these were all explained, I think, 2, 3 sessions ago, right? If you have any doubts about that, I think I have some code snippet available here also. Just see. Yeah, something like this. Okay. You'll need to create a code snippet that creates an engine, and then be able to run a query. And as far as running queries go, you should really be able to get a sense of how queries are constructed. And good practice for that would be using this site called SQL Zoo. So things like, so over here, I mean, these are good practice. Okay, these are good examples to practice on. So knowing how to use the group by having, because these are common operations, right? When you're looking with data, you usually want to group data, and they have some certain conditions by which you want to group by and things of that sort. So I really, really recommend you to go through SQL Zoo and practice some of these things. Okay, the where clause, group by clause, joining. Learn simple joins. I wouldn't say you have to learn very difficult joins, but the simple basic joins where you're joining two tables, those sort of joins you can learn. Apart from that, I think you should be able to. If you say, for example, if you were asked something a little more complex, you can always use GPT to help you construct the query. But the problem with that is if you don't know SQL at all, right, you will not be able to debug the GPT's result. So GPT will give you a result. You will put the result in your ROE, and you will not get the right answer. So then the question is, what's wrong, right? You won't be able to tell the GPT what's wrong. So that's why I said at least know the basics of how an SQL query is constructed, because then at least you will be able to give the GPT the right kinds of prompts and say, hey, I need you to do this specific thing and it's not doing this, or what have you. Okay.
So do we have the check answers button also? Just like we had for project one.
Yes, you will have a check answers button, but that should give you a clue that it will be tough.
Yes.
Okay.
So we will be able to see if it's correct or wrong.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
100%. You will be able to check if you're right or wrong, but it won't be. There won't be any MCQs. You'll have to key in. You'll have to type in your answers or copy paste your answers in, and then
And
you.
how many questions for 45 minutes?
I can't say it. It's not yet fixed how many questions will be there. So we are in the dark about it, just as you are. We have a rough idea, that it could be maybe around 10 questions, or it could be more questions. But I can't say for sure. If I give you a number now, right, and it isn't that, then someone's going to complain about it. The final result about how many questions will be is really up to Anand sir. So although we discuss the ROE creation and do some validation checks and those sorts of things and discuss what will be in it, at the end of the day, he makes the final call on what will be there and what will not be in there. So yeah, go ahead, Azan. You don't have to raise your hand. Just
How
ask.
many data sets do we have? Like, is it separate data sets? Like in the sample that was given, there were two types of data sets.
Mm.
So
So every ROE changes. Okay. So some ROEs there was only like you said, two data sets. Other ROEs have been there where they've only given you a website. Another ROE they give three different data sets. You could potentially have as many as 5 or 6 different data sets to look at. So um, be prepared that it could be any number. It could be one data set per question even. Okay.
One more thing I wanted to ask. In discourse, you mentioned that after the project, you said that you will conduct a session where you will tell how to find out the answers easily.
Yes.
I couldn't find the recording for that.
Yeah. So we have sent the recording details to the operations team, but they have not uploaded it yet. And we don't have the ability to share that video with you because we don't have permissions to the video, because the TAs are not given admin access to that part of the Google recordings and things of that sort. So although we can view it, we can't give permissions to others to view it.
But this is happening for almost all the TA session recordings. Only few are being pushed to YouTube, and there are so many that we are missing.
Yeah. So far, all the ones that were done up until I think last Thursday, all have been pushed.
I
Ones that
think
were recorded.
first from November, I think there is a problem.
Yeah. So
In
yeah,
discourse, today I have moved that query to operations. I
yeah.
hope they will.
Yeah, we have informed operations ourselves as well. We have asked them to upload it, and part of the reason for the delay is Prasanna sir. There is some issues he's facing, so he's not available at the moment. So even though, because normally he's the one who pushes the videos, and so we informed operations. He has informed operations. It's really down to operations now to actually push the videos out onto the TDS playlist. I'm really sorry we can't do anything more about it. But that's where we are at this point.
Even 1st November instructor session, that video is
Yeah.
out of.
Yeah, instructor sessions, I'm not very aware of which ones are being recorded and which ones are not. That's up to their discretion. So I can't comment much about those.
The
I think on,
instruction sessions are not happening. Last
yeah,
session, we just joined and we leave after 30 minutes because no one joins.
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
so
yes.
yeah, so last
even
instructor session, we had a late message stating that it won't be held. Um, and again, the message was sent to operations because they have the mail merge list of all the students. And they was operations was specifically informed, please send a message out to the students so that they are aware of the fact that the session has been cancelled. So uh, apart from that, I don't know quite what else to say because I can't do much more than that. We were also informed quite late in the day that the session was not happening.
So in that case, we have many downfalls that we are seeing in the course structure. Like week to week, the content has no relation at all. It is going wider but not deeper in any topic, and the
Yeah,
resources are getting limited. And we don't know the exam patterns. Like it is 3 days more, and we are not able to get how many number of questions will be there and how much time will be given, and we don't have prior practice also. So that way we are
yeah,
losing a lot, and every exam has so much of weightage, right? Every project and everything has so much of weightage, directly 20% weightage in the final,
yeah.
which grades by two grades down, right? So
Uh,
don't you consider all this?
Uh, we do. I mean, as far as the exam structure is concerned, this is the same thing that happens every term. So in that sense, if you've looked at previous ROEs, they're all completely different from each other, right? So how can I tell you the pattern will be this, right? But the skills will be the same. If you
We
look from
don't
one
have
ROE,
we don't have an option to look at previous ROEs also, right? So it's like only one or two sheets here and there will get out, and we don't know what is being asked and how to prepare also, right?
okay. So
And
I mean,
I'm
with
sure
regards
that
to
90% of the students will be on the same pace as me. We don't have
yeah,
clue at hand on how to prepare. And when we go through the Discord course, it all says like it is an impossible RV, and you yourself has highlighted it many times
yeah.
in the introduction
So
page and
yeah.
everything.
So with regards to the ROE itself, the things that I'll discuss today are things that you will need for the ROE. If you are well prepared with the things I tell you, then you will have at least the basis of scoring a reasonable number of marks in the ROE.
What is the number for the reasonable score?
Typically, the median in ROE is around 50%.
That means 10 marks. Okay.
And also, only the 12 people here are going to get advantage of it, and it is not taking into consideration the other people. Right? This session is not going to get updated even before 16. That is for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the people who will get the most benefit are the people who attend the TDS sessions. I mean, the TA sessions. That's for sure. That's been
Yeah.
the way every term actually. The students who attend the TA sessions are the ones who actually benefit, and they are the ones who actually do well usually, because we are able to give you almost first-hand information about likely what you're going to encounter. So in that sense, you're right. And regrettably, I mean, if it was in my power to upload the video to the YouTube channel straight away, I would have done that. I would have literally done it as soon as it was available. But because of the way the course team is structured in terms of how the BS team has set it up, they don't give TAs the permission. I mean, understandably so, maybe because they feel that, what if some disgruntled TA decides to upload something damaging or something, I don't know. So that's why they don't give us the permission to upload to the official channels. So we are not able to do that. But let me move forward anyway. Um, sorry, all, but it's 8:50. Yeah, yes, Indra, yeah. So, so remember this. So I hope you're making notes. learn the basics of SQL. I've talked about being able to use, for example, group by, having, knowing how to do aggregation in SQL. These are all important things to know. Okay. Then don't do the ROE and say you never said anything. I'm telling you now. Learn, go through SQL Zoo and learn how to do simple joins. Learn how to do aggregations. Learn how to group by, because that's a normal common operation. Learn how to use these things. Okay. You don't have to do very super advanced things. At most, you might need, for example, there is okay. How many of you know the function coalesce? It's spelled like this: COALCE, something like this. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the right spelling. So if you don't know this function, right, just look it up. And the idea behind it is, when you're looking at data that is missing in your tables, and you want and you're doing an operation on an SQL table, right? Then when there are missing values and you have a summing, for example, if there is a null or some unusual thing in that column, how should SQL deal with it? So coalesce is a function that tells the SQL, okay, you deal with it this way. Okay, so that's what a coalesce function does. Will you need it? I don't know, but it's a useful function to know with regards to dealing with missing values in an SQL table. Okay, and apart from that, the things that I said about in using SQL, so that's one thing that you should be good at. The next thing is, if we look at data sourcing, so here you don't need that, you don't. So scraping with Excel is things like you already have practice with, you where you import things into Excel and then do processing on it. Same with Google Sheets. Those are just skills that you need generally for ROE. Location services, I won't say location services specifically, but what you need to know is how to do API calls. Okay, and we have all discussed that again and again, week after week. You've seen them in several GAs now, at least two or three GAs there have been API calls. That should give you a very important clue that there's almost certainly going to be some API calls involved in this time's ROE. Okay, so make sure you understand how to do an API call. And with regards to that, this request library, be familiar with the request library, how it works, how to do a GET request, how to do a POST request, how to read the status code. With regard to status codes, there is this resource on MDN, and it's this one here, which tells you what these status codes are. So say, for example, you receive a 400 error code. I've seen like posts on Discourse where people have received an error, but they don't know what the error means. That's because they don't know what these numbers mean, right? So 400 just means that, you know, there was some error and it could not be processed. But if you get a 401, it means you actually connected, and that was great, but you're not been authorized. So that means there might be an issue, for example, with your token. So you will get a 401 error when there is some authorization problem. So like when a password is wrong, and in this case, your token acts like your proxy for a password, right? So when you see an error like this, you will realize, oh, actually my code is correct, but my token is wrong. You know, things like that, you should have a good grasp of knowing that, so that you can debug things quickly. The key in ROE is speed, right? So if you can solve things quickly, then you will be able to at least score some decent marks. So having a background idea of these things will help you. So just remember these things. So if you get a 404, okay, that means your URL is wrong. Okay, and sometimes there may be small misspelling mistakes in your URL, and you may not realize it. You're thinking, why is my code not working? It tells you 404 not found. That means it's you got a URL problem, right? So just be familiar with the response codes. Then the other aspect of it that you should really know is how to pass parameters in URLs, how to send JSON objects. This is important. JSON objects are dictionary key value pairs. And then the other thing about JSON objects that's very important to remember is JSON objects almost always, let's see if we can. So JSON objects will almost always look like this, right? There'll be some key and there'll be some value and there'll be a comma. And this is typically how JSON objects are constructed. In fact, I don't think that, say for example, you do this key 3, and if you do value, oops. I know this font is not very good, but if you do this with single quotes, I don't think this is a valid JSON. Okay, Jivraj, is that correct? Because I don't remember exactly, but I think typically JSONs require double quotes. Yeah, so remember that. Okay, sometimes when you're parsing things, you may think, what's wrong? Why is it not working? It could be simple things like that. Okay, so having good familiarity with the structure of data is very important. So so when you make your API calls and you're sending JSON objects, make sure that they are formatted correctly. So even though it's a key value dictionary pair and Python handles it as such, the actual JSON is always double quotes, okay, for your key value pairs. And the other important thing to remember is how to deal with headers. That's important. We have covered them in our previous sessions, so I won't talk about that extensively. But the reason I'm telling you this is not because just say this is important, that's important. These are things you're most likely to see in an ROE. So that's why I'm telling you these things, right? Status codes, response headers, cookies. Yeah. So Jivraj has done sessions where he has dealt with cookies. Be familiar with these concepts. If you have to authenticate somewhere and use a cookie, then learn how to use authentication to get access to certain things. But leaving aside authentication, the main thing is these requests, right? Really be sure you understand how to do them, how to send a post, how to deal with headers, and how to send data in terms of key value pairs, in terms of JSONs. And there's a matching part to it, which is with regards to JSONs, and that is learning how to read JSONs as well, right? So whenever you get a JSON, you will need this library called import JSON. You will need this library, okay? And there is a function called JSON dot loads, okay? And what this does is, so say for example, you do JSON loads, and you give it the data that you're sending it, okay? This will produce for you a dictionary that you can then parse in your file. So remember that this is an important component of the request library. So make sure you understand how to use this. Try out some examples is the best advice I can give. Just try out a simple example. Don't do anything complicated. Make sure you understand how it works, and that will help you as well. Okay. So that's with regards to API calls, which also involves JSON.
Carlton, just a question.
Sure.
When is project 2?
We'll not discuss that now because we want to really go over some of the things with regards to ROE. But
No, it's not sent out, right? Because the deadline is shown as 17th.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. I think it's been moved to
December.
2nd of
There was a
December.
message.
2nd to 12th December.
All right.
Yeah, I think there is an official announcement, right? With
Yep.
regards to that?
Yes.
I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there is an official pinned announcement on Discourse, and it tells you all the details here.
All right. Thank you. You can continue.
So yeah, so API calls. Okay, so although I won't say that locator services might be there or not be there, I can't say that. But what I can say is there will definitely be API calls. Whether it's to a BBC locator service or not, that I don't know. But it's always useful to just look at these notebooks. That brings me to a very important point. In your preparation for ROE, and this is what I advise to every student that has ever done ROE, create a notebook. Call it ROE or whatever, and start making some cells. Okay, so we talked about JSON, for example. So in there you put some sample JSON in there so that you remember, okay, this is what a JSON looks like. Okay, and then you can then create another cell. Yeah, and then I did this when I was doing ROE. Jivraj has done this. Anyone who has been successful at ROE, right? They have created these notebooks beforehand, and they contain all the valuable snippets that you might need. So, for example, if it's like an API call, right? Create these notebooks for yourself, and you will have a response typically. So you will need the request library. So I would put import requests here, and this is the other thing I was going to mention. So this notebook that you use should be different from the notebook you will be using to execute the questions of the ROE. So in other words, this is your reference notebook. Okay, so we'll call this, say, for example, reference. Reference. Okay, so this is your reference notebook. Okay, and then you want to make perhaps another notebook that's for ROE itself. So the problems that you're actually trying to solve. So, and then.
So do we need to submit that ROE notebook also in the
No, you don't need to submit this. But the reason I'm mentioning this is you beforehand itself pip install all the things you require. So if you need pandas, put pandas. If you need PyArrow, you put PyArrow. So keep everything ready is what I'm saying. SQL Alchemy, if you want, whatever libraries you have them all installed and ready on your notebook, so that when you're going to do the ROE, you're not wasting time on any of this. Import everything that you require, that you've learned and you require, and then create the notebook so it's ready to go. As soon as the ROE hits, becomes available, straight away start working on solving it. But keep your notebook already ready and have two of them, right? So have a reference which you can put to one side, and then put your solving notebook on the other side. And then what you can do is you can refer to things that are in your notebook. So say, for example, if this is the notebook, I've created some ready-made functions here that I can use. I can quickly search. So I can say, okay, I want to search for where I've dealt with JSONs, and then I find, okay, this is the cell I need. I can deal with or requests or whatever it is that I want to deal with. So have this setup ready. So you're not wasting any second. Every second will count in your ROE, okay? Because there will not be enough time. I guarantee you there will not be enough time. So that's one very important bit of advice I wanted to give. So if you look at these notebooks, they're useful in terms of just learning how the API calls work with those particular things. Then Jivraj has extensively covered JavaScript for being able to extract things from the browser. This is, again, I will stress this. You're saying you don't know what the structure is. I'm telling you the structure. This is very important. You will need to know how to extract information from a web page, from a live web page. Okay, so for example, if I want to extract information from here, you should be comfortable with using the inspect tools and using the console so that you can find what you're looking for. And typically what you're looking for are things that you would require a CSS selector for. Also be familiar that there is this tool in the corner, where you can find what you're looking for. So it's this button here. Okay, so when you click on this button, you can inspect the element that you're looking for. So say, for example, this is the element. So when I clicked it, it immediately highlighted the piece of code for me here, saying that this is what this element looks like. And you can see, okay, this is the class, and all this sort of detailed information comes. And Jivraj in one of his sessions also showed you how to manipulate these, right? You can directly manipulate these. So the way you do that is you right click and you say edit, and then you can manipulate them directly. Knowing how to do these things are going to be very valuable for you in your ROE. Okay. Any questions so far? Because I heard some.
Sir,
Just
do you suggest using Chrome only?
Yes, I suggest using Chrome because typically all our validation is done through on Chrome. So I would suggest use Chrome. What is PyArrow? Okay, so PyArrow is needed if you're reading Parquet files. So then you would need PyArrow. Okay. So
one more thing.
Yeah.
Our OPP will be on IIT portal or like the
No, OPP will be not OPP. It's ROE.
ROE, sorry.
ROE will be on on a separately hosted web server that is distinct from the IITM portal. It will be
Like
hosted on one of.
like we have for project one or
Yes, yeah. It will be hosted on one of Anand's own
okay.
domain.
Okay.
So what will happen is you will get a link before the exam. You'll get a link, and the link will you'll have to sign in using your Google ID, and it'll have to be your student Google ID. Okay, it cannot be any other ID. So if you try using your personal ID, it's not going to work. So that's how you'll have to log into your ROE. And yeah, so that's the other thing is submissions on ROE. You can do as many submissions as you want, and it will save the submissions. With regards to the answers, you can check your answers because there will be a check answers button, but only the last submission will be remembered. And if you reload, you can reload the page, no problem in reloading the page. It will, from what I've been told, it will also remember the answers and load it back into the page. So even if you, for example, have some internet issue and you have to close the browser, reopen it, your answers will still be there. So when you reload the page, it will turn up. That's what I've been told. So that's what I expect will be happening. Okay. So that was with regards to week 2. I think I've told you all the important things you need. Yes. Okay. And with as far as PDFs go, just it'll be, so you remember there was an assignment in week 2, right? With regards to, I think it was this one over here. So this PDF was very straightforward. I think virtually everyone could do this without any issues. So in terms of libraries, I would say you don't really need to know lots of complicated libraries. The tabular library is good enough for simple PDFs, and we are unlikely to ask you complicated PDFs for ROE because there is no time to deal with complicated PDFs. I've not seen it in past ROEs. It's unlikely to be in this ROE as well. If there are any PDFs, it will be simple. There may be unclean data in the PDF. That is always possible. So by unclean data, what I mean by that is you will say, for example, you'll have a table, okay, and the table will have. So let's say, for example, if you even look at this one, so there'll be a table, right? And what I mean by unclean data is suddenly in between there might not be marks or something like that might be an issue, okay? There might be something else in the middle or whatever. That kind of data is possible, okay? But in terms of parsing it, it will be straightforward. But you just got to be aware of examine your data. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, right? With I forget who it was who asked the question with regards to PDF, but there can be unclean data, but the PDF itself will be clean to extract, okay? Because there won't be time to do significant meddling around with the PDF. So the basic tabular library will be more than enough. Some people even are able to use Excel to scrape PDFs directly as well. So that might be possible. And that's all with regards to week 2. Week 3, Let's see. Okay, this is all you guys should know all this, converting, cleaning up data in Excel, data preparation in Shell. Okay, so with regards to data preparation Shell, anything you can do in Shell, you can do it in a pandas data frame. Okay, so it's up to you to decide whether you want to use. We will not be asking, at least I'm not aware of. Generally, we don't ask you system command questions. Okay, because we are not trying to test your ability to do system commands. But it is in service to the goal. What is the goal? Extracting data. So for example, some of you may not like the request library. So, okay, you can use the curl command, right? So you might use a curl command. You would use the shell to do that. So that's fine. There are no issues with that. Okay. The key is not to test your skills in Linux or something. It's here's the data. It may be unclean. Clean it. Get me an answer. That is the whole process. That is the whole data flow. That's what ROE tests you, right? If you can do that, giving the tools we have taught you, then you have achieved what our objectives are. Okay. So, is it useful to learn this? Possibly. Can you do all these things in Pandas data frame? Definitely. So, whether you want to use it or not is up to you in terms of how comfortable you are. Some people are very comfortable with this. Okay. And some things are actually very efficient with this as well compared to a Pandas data frame. So there is those advantages, but of course that means there is a effort required to learn them, right? So that's the only downside. So if you've spent the effort and invested the time, then maybe these are better. Okay, and definitely there are certain use cases where I found it better also, but it's very case specific. So do you need this? Probably not. Data preparation in editor, okay, that's fine. Open refine. So here in open refine, the only thing is about cleaning data, right? So if you've got misspellings and things of that sort to correct, then you might need to know how to use open refine. Again, download the software, learn how to use it. There was a question, particularly in graded assignment 3, that dealt with it. I think it was this last one here, right? Misspelled names on here. And it was a simple cleanup actually. It wasn't a difficult cleanup at all. You just had to, and I've demonstrated in one of the sessions. If you have any questions how to do it, watch that session. It has been uploaded, I'm sure of it. So you can watch the session where that was done. Okay. So in week 3, really there is not much. Okay, in terms of what you need to know. The only extra thing I would say is maybe if you need to do some misspelling cleanups, then this might be useful, open refine, because there isn't another tool that is reasonably good. There are Python libraries that do it, but then we are not going to teach you those libraries. You'll have to find those libraries. And I've used libraries in the past, but it's easy to look them up if you're more comfortable with doing it in Python. So say Python libraries for misspellings, cleaning up misspellings. If I remember, I'll make a post for it on Discourse. Okay, there was some libraries I used for doing cleaning up of misspellings and things. Maybe it's if I okay, yeah, I'll put a post on Discourse for that. Okay? If you want to use a Python library to do it as opposed to OpenRefine, that sometimes can come handy. So that's about week 3. Week 4, what do you require? So week 3, not much. Week 4, okay, week 4 will be important. What are things you need to know in week 4? Absolutely important. Learn how to do simple statistical analysis. What I mean by that, the basic things, which is correlation, means, medians, maybe quartiles, all those sorts of basic statistics that you've learned before, and particularly the ones that they've shown you, regressions. Learn how to do them. Don't use some complicated example. Just make a simple table or use an existing table that you have used in some of the other courses and just do simple analysis on it. Okay. have the functions ready. You don't have to do them in Excel. Pandas can do them just as well. So learn the pandas functions that do it. So in our case, I think one of the pandas function was pd dot I think it was actually it's df dot describe, right? Yeah. So it was this describe function, for example. That was gives you basic descriptive statistics, right? So along with that, there are some few other functions, like I said, correlation, regression, these sorts of things we will expect you to know. Okay, so definitely do that. Is there a way for me to get rid of this? Right. Am I still audible? Because I don't hear anything.
Yes, you're audible, Carter.
Okay. Forecasting you will not need, because forecasting is an Excel specific function. There may be forecasting with G sheets, but that's a pretty straightforward. It's just a formula, so no issues there. Data analysis with Python, yes. This is super 100% important, and you should expect that. If you've seen all our previous sessions, almost all of them exclusively use pandas for any sort of analysis, right? So you're going to have to just be good at that. There's no way of getting around it. Data analysis with databases. So here's where I was talking about SQL. Again, I'm telling you, it's very important. You are going to encounter some query or some SQL with regards to ROE. Learn how to do the simple joins, the things that I mentioned at the beginning, some of the aggregation functions. Definitely learn to do those. There has been no GA on DuckDB, but because this was introduced new for this term, I have got a very strong suspicion, okay, that there will be a question based on DuckDB. There was in fact a GA assignment that was supposed to have been there in the GA, but because when we were solving it, when Jivraj and I don't know if Jivraj was there at the time, but when I was validating it, it was deemed too difficult for students. Okay, so that's why it was removed from the GA. But having said that, because the content is there, and I have said to you already that you need to know SQL, and to use DuckDB effectively, you will need to know how to write an SQL query. At least be familiar with what this video talks about with regards to DuckDB. What I might do is I might do a small session regarding DuckDB on possibly Saturday or maybe tomorrow. Okay, I'll keep you posted about that. But there's almost certainly going to be a question. I have a strong feeling that this is going to be the case. So watch this video, learn how DuckDB works. It's very easy to use, but again, to use it effectively, the key is what? Learn how to construct SQL queries. Okay, and DuckDB may have some functions that are specific to it, but that's no different from, say, SQLite. SQLite has some functions that are specific to it. MySQL has some functions specific to it. So most of these will have some specific functions, but those you can always look up through GPT if any question comes up that requires anything specific to that particular DB. Okay? Don't tell me that I didn't warn you. So I'm telling you what is required and what is not required. Right? I've told you the things that are not required, and I'm telling you the things that are required. So, okay, so that's week 4. Week 5. Okay, 100% guaranteed. This is, you can write this down and hold me on account to this. You will be using an API call to an LLM in ROE. Okay, and you will be using the proxy as usual. So make sure 2 things, that your connection strings, remember I'd shown you a snippet. Make a basic snippet that enables you to connect to the API, sorry, the AI proxy. And in that AI snippet, you should be able to hit these 3 endpoints. So if you look at the documentation here, these are the 3 endpoints, right? So there's the models endpoint, there is the embeddings endpoint, and there's the completions endpoint. Make sure you're able to access these endpoints with the token that you have been given. Make sure you're able to do some simple queries on it at the very least, okay? Because being able to connect is half the battle, right? So these you should not be coding when ROE is going on. You should already have these ready, and then you just have to fill the information in that's required. You're guaranteed to get a question on LLMs, something that uses the LLM at any rate, whether it's embeddings or any number of other things I don't know. One very excellent example. So what I told you was the objective of ROE. You've been given data, you have to clean the data, you have to extract, to extract the data, to clean the data and get an answer, right? So one part of LLM that really does that is not necessarily what you call for not models, right? Unlikely. They're not, I don't think it's likely they'll ask you about models. But what they might ask you is structured extraction. So I had gone through one of the previous sessions about how to extract structured data from an LLM, from a given piece of data, right? So learn how to do that. That is something that's quite high on the possibility in terms of LLM usage, okay? Extracting structured data, very likely. In fact, I think there was a question, let me see here. So many of you tripped up on a question like this, right? It was not, I know it says it is, did it say it's hard? Okay, it said it's a hard exercise. So, but this is a good example, right? If you learn how to do this well, right, then I'm hoping you'll be able to deal with anything that, any LLM type questions that ROE might throw up, okay? So that's with regards to LLM. Vision model was just very simple, where they demonstrated the capability. I don't think there will be any questions regarding that. Topic modeling, this is possible. So this has to do with embeddings. So if you, let me see, yeah, so next session, okay, because I won't be able to cover it this next session, I'll show you like a little bit of the code snippets that you should keep handy for these sorts of things. And you can create your own as well. In fact, my advice is always create your own, because if you create it, you will know how it works. And if you know how it works, you'll be able to use it quickly. Whereas if you use something else that someone else has made, then oftentimes there is a little bit of usage gap in terms of time required to use something that you have not created yourself. You are not likely to get RAG because it is bit more complex, okay, in construction. I say not likely, does not mean it may not come, okay? But I'm telling you what are important things to focus on. Important thing to focus on is extracting data, things like this GA5 question 3, that's important. So extracting structured data is very useful use case of an LLM, right? So it's a good possibility of that happening. So that's with regard to week 5. Week 6, okay. We didn't manage to cover week 6 last time. So I will go over some important things that you may need to know for from an ROE perspective. So in ROE, so this is to do with geospatial data, okay. There is a library called, in fact, I think, I could be wrong, let me just have a quick look here. No. Was it, can someone remind me, did week 2 have nominatum? Week 2 had nominatum, right?
Yeah, week 2 had.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So that's also geospatial data, okay? So things to be familiar with is how latitude and longitude work. And so, for example, one easy question that could be asked is, how do you find, for example, the distance between 2 points on a map, right? Do you know how to do that? Finding two, possible to share. Okay, we'll see what we can do. Possible share previous GAs. No, we don't give this out. We find that it is much better that you prepare your own notebook. That's why we don't do it. Okay? But what I'll do is we will show you snippets of code on the session itself. So you can look at that and then construct your own. Okay. Saturday evening, there is an OPP session. Okay. Right. So, yeah. So do you know how to find a distance between 2 points on a map if you're given the latitude and longitude? If you don't, I'd like some responses by there, because if you don't speak,
formula, or you need to find the distance between latitude and longitude, and then you need to multiply it with some number.
yeah. So there are a couple of different ways. Okay. So there are two common ways. Okay, I'll say there may be other ways as well if there are. So if there is some very mathematical things required, then oftentimes in an ROE, Anand will usually put a link to it, so you can look up the information with regards to, or you can look it up on GPT also. That's fine. But two common ways, I would suggest you to be familiar with them because it is common, and it's possible to ask you that kind of question in ROE where it's geospatial, right? So if it's, where is it? Sorry, just give me a second here. Everything is open. Okay. So geospatial analysis usually tends to do with distances and how far things are from each other. We have seen it in past projects. This is why I keep saying that it's something that you could face in an ROE, because in past projects there have been questions where they've asked, like for example, within 200 miles, what is the constituencies that exist? If it's like election data, they've asked those sorts of questions. So um, the two things so common formulas you might need to remember is there is something called a Haversian formula. Don't try and write this during the ROE. Just have it ready in a function somewhere. Okay. In fact, there is, if I'm not mistaken, let's see. I think it's in SciPy. So import SciPy, and that you can ask GPT. It will probably know. What is the SciPy function for Haversian distance? Yeah, so this is the library you would need. Okay, I thought there was one. Yeah, no. Okay, this is a predefined function that it created, but there are inbuilt libraries that do this job as well. Okay, I'll post maybe I'll post a discourse thing about it or not, but don't wait for me to post the distance. I'm telling you in this session, learn how to calculate distances between various latitude and longitude, because that's common geospatial type exercise. It's been there in past projects and data assignments and things of that sort. There is almost certainly one going to be there in GA6, which has not been released. So that's why I'm saying learn how to do distances given two places and the latitude and longitude. It will help you. Okay. Another way to calculate it is, so the thing about Haversian distance is the assumption is that you're looking at a sphere. Okay. And so it takes into account this curve that is occurring here to calculate it. Yeah.
Sir, I have got that. Sir, I think it's from Haversine, import Haversine, comma unit. I just got it from this Copilot.
Fantastic. Then definitely use that. You can post it in here as well on the chat over here so that others can use it. But yeah, so with regards to distances between two places, Haversine deals with the fact that Earth is curved, and so this distance is really an arc on the curve, and so that's what it calculates. But there is another way to calculate distance. And if, say, for example, you're looking at a small area, okay, you're not looking at a very large part of the earth. You're looking at, say, for example, from Bangalore to Panjim in Goa, okay. So if you're looking at a distance in a small area, then the arc won't matter that much, right? So then there is a reasonably good approximation, which is assuming that the distance is going to be on a flat map. So in other words, it will be just the Euclidean distance between the 2 points. So be familiar with both methods of calculating distances, because it could come useful in an ROE if any geospatial type questions are asked. Okay. Right. With regards to, so this was about folium. It's a fantastic video, but from an ROE perspective, you're unlikely to need folium because that's a very visual type thing, and ROE tends to be more subjective type questions. With regards to using QGIS, again, this is used for spatial analysis from a graphical point of view. There is unlikely to be questions about QGIS in ROE, but that could be in the end term. Okay, that doesn't mean it won't be in the end term. But in ROE, again, I would not focus on QGIS. No need to worry about folium. No need to worry about QGIS, but definitely learn how to do distances. Okay, so the next thing is network analysis. Okay, so here they looked about various actors and actresses. How many of you have gone through this content?
So it's Joel, Angelina Jolie, and that.
Yeah. And these notebooks in particular. I mean, the actor network, the notebooks. How many of you have gone through that?
I have.
Okay. If you haven't, please go through it, because some examples. Okay, so what I'll do, because we didn't cover much of week 6, I'll do this now. Let me just give me a second here. Just give me a second. Okay, I hope that's visible. Okay, so now in math you would have learned graphs and things, right? When I'm talking about graphs, I'm talking about networks. I presume all of you are familiar with how that works, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take a simple example here. So let's say, so in the actor-actress case, right? So so suppose we've got, so who do we have here? We have 17 people here. So let's say I've got, so I'm one node over here, and then let's say I've got Azan who's here as well. Right? He's another node here. By the way, I'm sorry if I misspelled your name. And then got another node here. Okay, so there's Monica I can see. So, yeah. And then let's say there's another node here. Okay, and we'll who else is here? And we've got Himanshu. So Himanshu. Okay, and let's say, okay, let's whoops. So we'll do just 5 nodes. And there is we've got Pradeep. So Pradeep. Okay, and let's say the edges on these are how many posts we have communicated on. Okay, so I'll put one here. I'll put one here. Okay, and so if I say I've communicated 3 times there, I've communicated twice here, maybe once here, and maybe once here, and on the post they are communicated 3 times, twice, 5 times. Okay, Azan and Pradeep are best friends. So a typical question. So if you looked at, for example, in the network analysis notebook, so they had actors and actresses, and the edges were just not given any weights. Okay, if they have acted in, oh no, actually they were given weights. So if people acted in movies together, then if they've acted more than one movie, that would be the edge weight of, or the strength of the connection between those actors and actresses. And then they did some analysis regarding that, right? So what might be a typical question that could come, for example? You will be given some data, okay? And in that data, you will find that there are relationships between the various entities. That relationship could take any form. So in this case, we are looking at discourse posts. In the movie actor basis, database, it was people who have acted in movies together. So regardless of the relationship, there may be some weights associated with it. And the answer, the question might be, okay, here's the data, and it will be usually be given in some form of some convoluted method. Might be in a PDF, might be in a JSON, might be in a CSV, any number of ways. It could be in a HTML file. Again, remember, the processes we are trying to test you on is, can you extract the data? Can you clean the data? And then can you transform the data? And then can you get the answer? Those are the 4 things we're trying to test you on. So in this scenario, once you get to the point, okay, where you can encapsulate this information into a pandas data frame, this is where everything goes to eventually, right? If you can put it in a data frame, you can do the analysis. So this data has to get encapsulated into a pandas data frame, and typically what that involves is there'll be some entries. Okay, so if I call them from, no, sorry, not from, source, target, and edge. Okay, typically you want to have it in this kind of structure, your information. You want your structure to have this information, and I'll tell you the reason why. So once you put it in this structure, once you put it into this structure, so for example, I might have 1, 2, 3, 4 entries here. Okay, and then Monica will have 2 entries. Okay, so like that, so on and so forth, and you will have all the information. And here, on here, you'll put the edge weights. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 1, something like that. Once you get it into this form, then you are able to do something useful with this, and I'll show you how to do that one. So
So maybe I'm wrong, but the table you constructed will have redundant edges, right?
yes,
Limited.
yes. Your table will have redundant entries. That's why I wanted to show you this. So when you have network information like this, your table will have redundant entries, but you want your data in this format, and I'll demonstrate to you now. Okay. So, okay. So okay. Right, I'll just do it in here. You can do it in here. Yeah. Okay. So we'll construct a quick table now because I don't have a CSV here. It'll only take a few seconds or a minute or so. So if I call it discourse CSV, oops. Okay, say source, target, weight. No, I'll call it posts. Okay, and then we'll put some names. Weight 1. Weight 2. Weight 3. 13. Weight 2. Then March 2. Weight 3. So you'll have to have as many entries as there are. Anyone want to tell me?
Edges.
Correct. And so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Azan and Pradeep, I think. Azan. Okay. So we've got our table here, and if I go import and as STD. I hope this is visible. It's clear, right? You guys can see, right, what's going on. Some audible response would be useful.
Sure.
Okay. So then I do read CSV. Oops. And it's called discourse. CSV.
So it would be pd.reads.
Okay, so yeah, so that's all fine. Now the next thing is we want to import this library, which is called get the name. It's on here somewhere. This one. So in fact, if I copy this, copy it. Okay, so I think I have to pip install this. Pip install network X. Okay, import. Right. So the next thing we need to do is we've got to. So now we've got our data frame, and it's got some relations and some edge weights. Next thing we've got to do is we have to create a graph from it. Okay, and you use this library called network X. Okay, and there is a function within it or a method called from pandas edge list. Okay, this is why we constructed that CSV. So we're saying create a network from this edge list, and then you give it the data frame that we just created. Okay, so df, and then here you give it the source. The first one is the source. So our source was, okay, it's called source. You remember there was a reason I gave it that name, right? And then over here you give it the target. Okay. Now these can be named anything in your data frame. Okay. So this could be, for example, actors and movies or something like that. Okay. And then you would have to put those labels over here. And then the third thing is you have to give it what the edge attributes are. So you say edge attributes, and in our case, we just have edge weights, and it's a single column. Now, typically, you could have many columns in this data frame, okay? But the relationship between the source and the target may only rely perhaps on one of those columns, right? In our case, it's a simple construction, only this column. But this is where you put your edge attributes. So in our case, it's posts. Okay. I think I've got that correct. And then once you do that, let's run this, make sure it works. Okay. Now we can easily find the shortest path from one entity to the other. So let's say we want to find the shortest path. I mean, I know it doesn't make sense in terms of discourse posts, but let's pretend that it does. So we want to find the shortest path from, say, Carlton to Himanshu. Okay. And it seems like the direct path probably is. So let's increase the weight of that path so that it's something ridiculous. So let's make it 10 or something. And now we should, so I have to import this CSV, get that. So we can see the weight has increased. We create the graph. Okay, I don't know why that didn't work. Why did that not work? There is one, should be. Oh, right, sorry. It's not shortest path, it's shortest path. Oh, right, yeah, I have to give it the, I missed out on one thing. Wait. Yeah. Now, if you look, right, I've told it the weight is in this edge attribute called posts. What did it do? The shortest path is now via Monica, right? So that's how you construct your network graph. You first create your pandas edge list data frame, and it should have the information that you're looking for in it in terms of the source and the target, the weights, and then when you're creating the graph, give it all the information, the data frame, the source, the target, and the edge attributes. And then when you're calculating the shortest path, you tell the source and the target, and this time you're using the graph itself, okay, G that's been created here, the graph object, and then you tell which edge attribute to use as post, because edge attributes, there could be many different edge attributes. But here you tell weight equal to, and then it will give you the path. So that's why it has shown you the shortest path as that. Was that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in terms of week 6, distance, being able to calculate distances using Euclidean distance and Haversian distance, just keep them, those kind of functions ready. In terms of network analysis, know how to create an edge list, know how to create a network graph, and then you are able to do analysis. And that's all you require for week 6. I think that is the brief overview of the things you require to learn for ROE. So I hope that was useful in terms of a summary of what you require. Because it's not everything, it's very specific things that you require.
Carter,
Yeah.
you were you were going to share that screenshot where parallel requests were sent for project 1.
Sorry, could you repeat that again? I didn't quite catch that.
Parallel requests were sent while data scraping
Oh,
for
yes,
project 1.
yes, yes,
You were
yes,
going to
yes.
share that screenshot.
Right. Actually, we will post. We'll put it on a discourse post. So
Sure.
I mean, I can show you the screenshot. It doesn't matter.
So do we need to be ready with that parallel processing also for this ROE?
No, that was just something we thought it was useful for you to use in your like just general life as a data scientist, how to run parallel requests. It's not something we will expect you to be able to do in ROE. But it's just a useful thing to know. How do you send synchronous requests to an API? You know, when you're trying to get a large amount of data and you don't want to spend all day scraping it, then that's something quite useful to know how to do. So that's all it is. It's now from an ROE perspective, you might not need to know that because it's just a cool thing, right? To be able to do something very quickly that normally takes a lot of time. Okay, Jivraj, you want to add anything at this point? Can you please get the recordings and share as well? Yeah, I mean, I will send it to the operations team. I'll get in touch with JK tomorrow personally and ask him if he can just push those not only this video today but also the previous two videos if he can push it to the TDS channel. So I'll try and get that done for you. Okay, Pradeep? No worries. Jivraj, you want to add anything?
You have covered everything. The only thing is, while getting data from web pages, you might have to use JavaScript sometimes. You already talked about that is the only.
Sorry, it's not very clear.
No.
When you take from web pages,
Okay. While scraping data from web pages, sometimes the method that we usually use using request libraries that might not work. For that, you might need to use JavaScript. So better to be prepared for both JavaScript and request.
Your voice is not very clear actually. If you can repeat once again.
So what Jivraj was trying to say is when you have a web page scraping to do, which almost certainly there's again a very high possibility of that. When you have web pages to scrape for information, you may sometimes not be able to use beautiful soup, for example. Okay, to the request. In other words, the request may not work when you use the request library. So if it does not work, then the only option left to you is to use something like JavaScript, which I was mentioning to you earlier, where you really should be comfortable with using JavaScript through the DevTools console, so that you can extract the information that you want. That's what you're saying. And what we'll do is, most likely we will. I'll talk to Jivraj and with the operations team. We'll most likely schedule one more session tomorrow or day after. Most likely tomorrow, and then in that session we will do a rapid overview of scraping in terms of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all the essential bits in a compressed session where we will just quickly go over all of them so it's fresh in your mind exactly how we go about those things and how we do it quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, that will be good.
Okay. We'll also in that session. So today's session was to give you an overview of what's required and what is not required. Tomorrow's session we'll do a bit more technical work in terms of we'll look at snippets of code that you should ideally have in your preparatory notebook that you will use for your ROE. Okay. So we will construct a notebook tomorrow, and in that notebook we will do all the important segments of code that you will require. Okay, and then from that you can use that as a template to create your own constructed notebook for ROE. So it might be one more session or two more sessions. We don't know yet. It will depend on how quickly or how well tomorrow's sessions go. So agenda for tomorrow: brief overview of HTML, brief overview of response, how to get responses, brief overview of CSS, how to use the selectors, brief overview of JavaScript, extracting objects from your browser, SQL connections, LLM API calls, and week 6 I already demonstrated you a bit of code, how to construct graphs, so we don't need to do that. And I think that's possibly it, right, Jivraj? Is there anything else? Okay, I can't hear you, Jivraj, but okay.
So tomorrow, sir,
Right.
we'll be doing the summary of ROE.
So tomorrow we will be doing some actual code work. In other words, I've told you the things you need to study. Hopefully you spend today and tomorrow before the session becoming familiar with it, because we won't be spending a lot of time going deep into it, but we will go over all the skills in terms of code snippets. So we will look at an example of code and we'll say, okay, this is how you do this. So for example, one common function I'll give you, okay? You will almost certainly be given sets of files, okay? That very commonly happens in ROE, sets of files. How do you quickly iterate through a set of files, right? It's a kind of common function that you need, because there may be 2 or 3 questions where there will be, all of them will have sets of files. So in the ROE, you don't want to be sitting and coding that. Instead, you want to have a snippet ready to do that job. So we will show the snippet of how you would do some function like that, right? So that would be an example. Then we will show you, for example, we'll take a small piece of HTML code, and then we will show you, okay, this is how you, these are the essential functions for parsing through that code. So we'll take you through that process. Then we will show you, okay, this is how you extract information using JavaScript if you can't extract the HTML through a request. So those are the sort of things, snippets we will put together tomorrow and construct a notebook in the session. And it will be a very hands-on type of session tomorrow.
Okay, so since I joined a little late, in fact, I joined just like 20 minutes ago, so I entirely missed this session. So what did you cover in this session?
We did an overview of what you need to focus on, because there is a lot of material, right? Sometimes it can be overwhelming deciding what to learn and what not to learn, right? So we did an overview of what are the essential things you need to learn and what you don't need to pay as much attention to. See, the
Okay,
workflow is, if you think about it as a workflow, that's the best way to think about RE. If you think of it as a workflow, we will test you on how to extract data, okay? So the skills that go with that. We'll test you on how to clean the data. So the skills that go with that. We will test you on how to transform the data, the skills that go with that. And finally, how to answer the question, the skills that go with it. That's the workflow. If you've got all those 4 things in place, then our objective for ROE is achieved.
okay.
Sir, I just wanted to ask one thing. I have asked at the start of the lecture also.
Okay.
Sir, you discussed like one lecture in which project 1 you have discussed, right? Where you said that you can find out the answers very quickly. So I understand that you cannot talk about it wholly, but can you just give a brief overview? What was that about? Like,
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
So
just
I can
we'll have an idea at least.
Yeah, so what happened in there is, in fact, if I pull it up here, you can, you're still able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with ROE, I'm sorry, not with ROE, with the project. So one of the things we demonstrated was how you can scrape all the repos and all the users within, I think it's under a minute. Okay, so it doesn't take you very long. That code we will snippet we will push on this course. Probably Jivraj can push it on there because he's got access to the repo that we were working on. And so that was one thing we wanted to show you. So we did a poll, and then in that session, people, gave various ideas of how long it would take, and we showed them that actually, no, you can do it in under a minute. It's the scraping part of it. So the next thing I wanted to show was, what we showed was, you can actually get all the answers for your ROE 100% correct in under 5 minutes. So in other words, you can solve all of project 1 in under 5 minutes. So I wanted, we showed that in there, and I can quickly show you how you do it here. So there are some prerequisites, of course. You should have already scraped the data. That's one thing. Secondly, you should have already uploaded the files into GitHub. That's the other thing. If you've done those two things, now in terms of answering the questions correctly, all we had to do is, okay, here I haven't put the GitHub repo, so I can't show you here. But typically what would happen is, so in fact, if I see, I would go hit the inspect button. Okay. And you can see there are these tabs over here. And if you look at the sources tab, okay, this is a bit of a hack. That's what it was. Okay. The first clue was whenever you used to hit check answers button, you notice that it was instantaneous, right? That it was able to tell you whether the answers were right or wrong instantaneously. The reason it was able to do that is because it's doing it in the front end. So something is going on in your browser that is able to tell you that the answers are correct or not. And in this particular case, because the validation is always done by JavaScript. Okay, so because we know that those facts, so the point is, can we hack this script to find the answer, right? If you can find the answer, you can just fill it up and you can submit it, and it will be 100% correct because it will get the answers that it is expecting. So we had a look at these files, and we can see here project 1 JavaScript. And if you examine this carefully,
so console.log expected, right? Maybe.
No, you go to sources. If you go to sources, yeah, you can.
Yeah,
yes,
here
correct. You can.
I
Yes.
typed I typed console.log expected in the file. This just JavaScript file.
Yeah. So the way we found that out is you'd have to examine the code. Okay. So this is where knowing a bit of JavaScript would help. I know I said you don't need to know JavaScript, but this is where it's an advantage. So when examining this file, we looked at these questions, okay, Q0, Q1, Q3, and we noticed that, so two things to notice. First of all, you can notice there are these functions here. These functions are doing the validation, okay? In other words, it's calculating the answer. So in case you didn't know how to solve the problem, if you followed this, you would be able to solve the problem. That's the first thing. But that takes long, right? You'll have to put it in your pandas, an equivalent sort of solution to work, right? It works, but it takes time. Or you could use GPT, convert this code into a Pythonic answer. So that's possible, but again, it takes time. But if you notice, once it calculates it, it stores it somewhere. It stores it into a object called expected, which is what is the variable we are looking for. So if we can examine this object, then almost certainly we will be able to get the answers, right? So what we did was we put a breakpoint. So this function ends up here, right? So we put a breakpoint over here. And once we put the breakpoint, now it won't work in this case because I haven't put the GitHub repo. It's required, okay? Without the GitHub repo, you won't get the answers. And the reason for that is all the answers are based specifically on your GitHub repo. So that's why it won't work unless you put your GitHub repo.
So, sir, you mean that this thing we can use it in ROE as well?
It is possible, but you would, but the question is, so there's a trade-off. Okay, the trade-off is this: if you are good at JavaScript and you can understand what's going on, then you might find some joy in it. Okay, it's possible. If you spend time on it and you're losing time solving the question, and you realize that you can't do it via JavaScript, then the potential payoff is poor, right? So it's a risk you're going to have to take. You have to decide, okay, is it worth the risk? That's what the decision you're going to have to make. Now, one thing I will say is
What is the risk? I didn't get you. Like,
so okay, in this case, right, now I've told you how to do this, right? And it was structured in this way, and it was easy for you to find for two reasons. One, I've told you, and the second is these are well commented, nicely commented. The variables have been given nice names. There is, in other words, there is no obfuscation. Do you know what that term means? Obfuscation. So obfuscation, yeah.
Something that we didn't have to find, is it?
Yeah. So obfuscation means hiding something. So imagine if this word expected was not there, this Q12, Q13 was not there, and this was all random variables, A dot B, A dot C, Z dot Y. If it was like that, it would be almost impossible to know what was going on, right? And if there were no comments, then it would be quite challenging to know what's happening, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So if there is no obfuscation, then it is easy. Okay. In this case, everything was well commented, everything was available. And in fact, Anand deliberately did this. He wanted to see if any student was going to try to hack and get the answers. So he left it in as an Easter egg. So in case someone was able to do it, well and good, he was happy for them to get the full marks. Okay. And it also serves another purpose, and that was to demonstrate in real life, this is what happens. You hear about sites being hacked and all that sort of thing, right? It's because people go through the back end and search for vulnerabilities like this, right? Or extract information that they should not be able to extract. And that's how they do it, right? They examine what's happening, if validation is being done on the front end. And
so it has been done on purpose, right?
Yes. So this was done on purpose to see if
that's
students
what I was thinking. Like, while solving the project, I used this also. So I thought, why they like keep it public?
Yes. Yeah. So that's the reason it was kept. He wanted to see if students would try this, because there was a session, right? Week 2, JavaScript, how to get details and things out from a website, right? And how to use the web tools. So we talked about this, and so he wanted to see how many students are willing to try the skills that they've learned. So that's why it was left in. That being said, ROE is a completely different ballgame, right? I cannot tell you if it's going to be worth doing it or not in ROE, right? Because maybe it might not be so easy. So you might spend time looking at this and thinking, I could have spent that time better solving the question, because there's almost certainly going to be too many questions and not enough time. Which brings me to another important tip. As soon as you, so say for example, imagine this was ROE. As soon as you see the questions, don't straight away start solving the first question. Okay. Read all the questions and pick the one that's the easiest to solve first. Don't straight away start solving the first question, because you might find that the easy question might be somewhere in the middle. Once you solve the easy ones, then go to the next easiest one, and so on and so forth. I made that critical mistake when I was doing my ROE. I looked at the questions and I thought, oh, that's a set of questions. There's a huge data set there. Maybe it will take time for me to deal with. And I saw, oh, there was some PDF scraping. Only just one, I think it was just 1 or 2 files. I don't know. Oh, that will be easy to do. And I started working on it. Okay. And when I started working on it, I realized that the PDF is very messy. Okay. Immediately, what I should have done is dropped it off and gone to doing the clean data, which was in those 20 or so XML files were there. Okay. I should have done that. But instead, I decided to stick with it and muddle through it, and I ended up, losing a whole bunch of marks because the other questions were easier to solve because the data was clean, versus this one, the data was not very clean, and I was spending a lot of time cleaning this data, and it only had answered a few questions rather than answering many questions in the other set.
So, in your time, you haven't tried this one, this finding answers through JavaScript?
No, I did not attempt this, but for project, when we were doing validation, we definitely did this. Both Jivraj and I hacked it and told Anand that we managed to get all the answers. Because project, there was no time restriction, right? So we were able to comfortably hack it and get the answers. But we also did individual question validation also. Both we did, because we had to write the scripts for answers to see that if students can get the right answer or not. But for ROE, my advice is don't get fixated on something thinking, if you feel you can do it, then that's great. But just be careful, okay, that you don't get sucked in, like I got sucked in, right? Thinking, if I only just get this, so, that might be the thing, right, in your head. I spent 5 minutes on this. If I spend just a few more minutes, because that's what's going on in my head, I'll then be able to get the answer, and then I'll get a whole bunch of marks, right? Don't be very careful, is my point. Don't get fixated on it. You might not be able to hack it. Maybe there is deliberate obfuscation, or there are, as I've once said recently, there may be red herrings. Do you guys know what a red herring is? Okay, so red herring means, imagine like this is your ROE, okay, and everything is neatly labeled, okay, and it says expected this, that, and you're thinking, yeah, this must be the variable I'm looking for the answers. But in fact, this is a something designed to fool you, that the actual answers is in a variable called answers or something, and this is just useless script, right? That's called a red herring. Why? Because the red herring draws your eye towards it, right? So when you see all these neatly commented things, your eye is drawn towards it, and you think this must be the right way of going about it. Whereas in reality, maybe it's in a completely different file. Maybe it's in eval.js or something, right? And it's not at all in the roe.js. So that's what I mean. There could be many tricks that Anand could use to play with students who think who can hack it, right? So my point is, don't get fixated on this. But are there questions that will require you to use JavaScript? Almost certainly, but not in terms of hacking, but in terms of answering questions. You might definitely, I think there is a very strong possibility for you to get questions where you might need some JavaScript to answer the questions, because you have to extract an object out of the JavaScript.
Sir, I want to confirm the structure of the exam. So, like, how many questions can we expect?
I don't know, brother. There have been ROEs where there have been, I think, something like 20 questions or more. And then there have been ROEs where there have been like 8 or so questions.
So the time span for each RO is same, 45
No,
minutes.
no. Each ROE depends on how difficult the questions are and how many questions are there. So one term there was only 45 minutes. Another term there was 1 hour. Another term, I think last term, it was nearly 1 hour and 1.5 hours, or nearly 2 hours, the ROE last term.
And there were only 10 questions, right?
Yes, there were only 10 questions, I think, last ROE. But it
So,
was
like, when is it gonna, like, when it's gonna be confirmed?
the time of the ROE in the next couple of days.
Questions,
Yeah. Oh, questions.
questions, and yeah, time both.
Yeah. So questions regarding ROE, you will know on the day how many questions are there. I would say just be prepared with the skill set. Don't worry about how many questions are there. Just learn the skills that I've told you about. If you focus on the skills and the workflow that I was talking about, you should be able to score reasonable marks in the ROE. Because see, if I tell you there are 20 questions, how is that helping your preparation? It may not, right? Because it might be one big data set and there are 20 questions, and the challenge might be that you have to do cleaning, joining of tables, concatenating information, transformation. Maybe that's what will take a lot of time. And then answering the questions might be very quick. So that's why there are 20 questions, right? So it's not going to help you prepare. Whereas if I said there are only 5 questions, but the ROE is 2 hours long, now that means there is a bigger problem here, which is it's actually challenging whatever the question is. It's the question is not easy to answer. You see what I mean? There's a big world of difference between the two. So
Yes.
that's why we don't tell students how many questions. That was not going to help you. What will help you is the workflow that I was talking about. Be very proficient in extraction. And I've talked about the skills you need for that. HTML, JavaScript, requests, API calls. Then putting them into a data frame, cleaning the data, be very proficient in that. Learn how to do descriptive statistics on data. Learn how to deal with null values. Learn how to um, uh, clean up, do interpolation between various rows. These are all cleaning techniques that you need. Then next is transformation. Transformation is where you converting one sort of data into another. So where, for example, you may need to count or aggregate, use various functions that transforms the data into the answer you want, and then finally producing the answer. So if you understand it that way and work on your skills that way, those 4 sets of skills, then you will be prepared for RE. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll wrap up for today.
Carlton, at what time will there be session tomorrow?
I'll finalize it after speaking with the team, and then most likely it will be similar time, 8 to 10 in the evening.
Okay.
But if you all want it earlier, I mean, my preference is to do it earlier, like 5 to 7 or
Yeah,
so.
same here.
So if that's okay with everyone, then we can do it 5 to 7. It will be recorded anyway, and we will
No, I
try.
prefer late actually, for me.
Sorry.
I prefer late. Anyway, it may differ,
Yeah,
student to
yeah,
student.
yeah. We'll record it anyway, and I will have a personal word with the operations team tomorrow, and stress to them that as soon as the recording is available, we want it pushed so that it's available at least for Saturday, in terms of what's recorded tomorrow. And today's recording, we'll try and get it pushed for you tomorrow.
And then I wanted to actually request you that this recordings, if you can make it available as early as possible, it will help really.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, the difficulty is, like I mentioned before, we don't actually have access to the permissions. So we can't give permissions to the recording. If we could, we would have. What typically happens is we send the information to the instructor or the ops team, and then they have to push it. Only they have the admin authority. Extraction with JavaScript. Yes, what's your question, Paul? Paul Kumar, you had a question? We've written extraction with JavaScript. That's just a statement. You're not audible, Paul. If you... Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll end the recording now.
Sir,
And
one more thing.
mhm.
Since this is mentioned that you can take help from your peers, and maybe I don't know how will that work out, but since it is mentioned, I just want to ask, um, like, is this first of all, like, what's gonna be the like, how are we gonna get the link, since it is not OPE, so the structure will surely be different. Uh, like how are we are gonna access the exam portal and all that, so that process.
Yeah. So what I think will happen, this is my guess. I have to speak with operations, but there will be a link sent to you, okay, on all the students. Most likely it will be via multiple channels. So one is the link will be sent almost certainly through email. Secondly, there will be a link most likely posted on Discourse. That's almost 100% guaranteed. And then there will be the link for the exam put on the portal itself so that you can access it via there. But it won't be, the exam won't be on the portal, but there will be a link to the exam from the portal. So these are the various avenues that you will get the link. Once you get the link, you will, just sort of like how project was, where you log in using your Google IITM ID. So the same way, you will have to sign in using your IITM ID on for the ROE. And once you log in, you can then start the exam. And the questions and answers will be in the same format as you've seen in the project, where there'll be a question, there'll be a text box, you enter the information in there. And there'll be a check answers button at the bottom and a submit answers.
And for the data, I mean, in previous time, I have talked to some seniors. They told me that the 7-zip was used for I think unzipping the file, and uh, basically a password was provided, and that part. Will that be the
So
same?
yeah, so this time we have decided to not give a password zip, but you are almost likely certain to find zipped files. So being able to extract files will be something you'll have to do on your end, regardless of the machine you have. So just make sure that you are able to unzip files, because there may be zipped files in there. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll carry on tomorrow.